Lot to chew on. The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Wednesday, the 15th of January, 2025. This is program number 1305 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, of course, in addition to radio 101.1 FM, you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com, and we are streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And please be sure to like and share that link as well with your friends and family. And of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate, that number is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also message in on WhatsApp. That number is 724-0008. You can call in as well if you so choose. On that WhatsApp number, it is 724-0008. Now, some birthday greetings for today going out to Mr. Nigel Nicholas or Nigel Shamari Nicholas. Happy birthday to you, sir. And we wish you an absolutely wonderful birthday celebration. Hope you are enjoying your very special day. And also some birthday blessings and greetings going out to Miss Mindy Chico. Happy birthday to you. And we're wishing you an absolutely fantastic birthday celebration. Now, a bit of history. We go back into time, into Palestine, into Jerusalem, and it's the year 588 BC, and King Nebuchadnezzar II of Babylon laid siege to Jerusalem, and that was during the reign of the Israelite King Zedekiah, and that lasted until July the 23rd, 586 BC. In the year 1535, King Henry VIII declared himself head of the church in England. 1559 on this day saw Elizabeth I being crowned Queen of England in Westminster Abbey. Of course, that was Henry's second daughter. In the year 1759, the British Museum opened in Montague House in London. And we go now to 1902, where Abdul Aziz Ibn Saud led 40 men over the walls of Riyadh and took the city, marking the beginning of the third Saudi state. 2001 on this day saw Wikipedia, a free wiki or content encyclopedia, being launched by Jimmy Wales and Larry Sanger. And in the year 2009, on this day, January the 15th, Chelsea Sullenberger landed U.S. Airways Flight 1549 on the Hudson River shortly after takeoff from LaGuardia Airport in New York City. And all passengers and crew members survived in what was known as the Miracle on the Hudson. We now move on to our dish of the day. The Daily Dish is brought to you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+, this all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We are so glad that's and vanity. Boss, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Brazilians, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program here today. And we do hope that it is a very good one. Of course, looking back into the year 2024 and what was very topical across the news here in St. Lucia and in various watering holes, places where individuals were speaking about the various issues of the country. From my estimation, three issues seem to dominate quite a bit. And I'm taking out one of them, which was the whole matter of citizenship by investment that had a trajectory of its own, which seems to have, for want of a better term, sort of petered out as a result of the declarations being made by Mr. Philippe Martinez, who was in fact putting forward a case in the United States. And come the end of the year, he in fact indicated that he was left with no choice but to withdraw those matters. So that matter, of course, was we could put that into perhaps a separate box. But in terms of the issues that were dominating the airwaves, certainly crime was a very, very topical matter, and that has been the case for a number of years now, as we particularly have been seeing the impacts of gang-related violence, retributions, keeping a very elevated and ever-increasing number of homicides, which has sort of become the sort of litmus for the state of crime in St. Lucia. Albeit you may very well find, as had been the case, you may sometimes see reducing crime numbers overall, and potentially even higher detection rates. But the matter of crime seems to come down to that one metric, that of homicides. So certainly crime was a major issue and over the past year. The other one being that of healthcare. And there seem to have been within the healthcare sector quite a few rumblings in terms of the issue of delivery of healthcare, and of course the ever increasing cost with respect to healthcare delivery. And that, of course, is a very broad situation at play when we look at our country, because, of course, in dealing with violent crime, that also means that you're dealing with healthcare challenges as a result of that. Dealing with more accidents and injuries as a result of those accidents on the island's roads has meant that there is an ever increasing demand on the secondary healthcare facilities, in particular on the island. And of course, the overall increase in the health burden of the population, as that population is generally ticking upwards in terms of age. We've got an aging population, and that has meant that, and not necessarily just a healthy aging population, but a population that is faced with significant burdens of non-communicable diseases and the issues of multiple diseases, comorbidities, all coming together. It places certainly a major challenge with respect to the health system, whether at the primary level or at the island's hospitals. Once somebody comes in for maybe one issue, and then it is identified that they've got other issues, that complexity quite often means that you require additional time, additional care. It complicates the prognosis, and means that effectively people have to stay at the healthcare facilities longer than what would be generally expected. And of course, that has an impact on things like the number of beds that are effectively available or tied up as a result of that. And it is certainly a challenge that the country now has to come to grips with. There was a time, I think, and probably still is the case, that in terms of spending by the state, the Ministry of Education has long been the sector where you saw the highest amount of spending, because it effectively was dealing with a growing population, a youthful population that needed access to education. And we saw a significant amount of investment over the years in building uh, infrastructure to be able to support that, whether it is through primary schools, taking schools off the shift system, for example, investing in upgrades, expanding in new secondary schools, now seeing a new wave of retrofitting of these schools to become TVET centers and specialized centers serving various pursuits within the curriculum, and just generally a lot of investment in education over the years. And to the point now that we, in fact, have surplus capacity within our education sector by way of schools now seeing very, very low student teacher ratios in, I think, across the board. We were talking about one teacher for about 12 students. And that is something that we're seeing in primary schools and secondary schools. So there is, in fact, a significant surplus capacity within the education system. And it is evident in the school plants that were buildings that were designed to accommodate sometimes 400, 500 students, are only seeing 150 or so students within those school buildings. And however, the overall cost of delivery has not actually decreased, because the number of teachers that you see are pretty much still the same. And so, in as much as the entire population is now shifting, is getting older, and you can see where the pressure is now. It's now shifting from education to healthcare, and a lot more demand on health services. And now the issue is, how do you deal with this ever increasing demand in the cost of healthcare? And whether we like it or not, healthcare in St. Lucia, whether we are satisfied with the quality of it or not, is almost treated as a public good. And invariably, it is very difficult for health institutions to be able to recoup in terms of payment of fees. These things quite often go unpaid, whether it is for health institutions here on island, and even when individuals seek out healthcare in neighboring Martinique, for example. And so that mentioned quite recently by the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister, that it was effectively a $70 million debt being carried by the Ministry of Health, some of which dated perhaps well over a decade old, really gives the indication that the system has been running at a deficit for quite some time. And so we, in addition to that, of course, also facing the need for this continued need for infrastructure within the healthcare sector. And of course, after many, many, many years of planning and somewhat, one may say, even dithering as to whether, in fact, we needed a new national hospital. The decision finally being taken to push forward with respect to the new national hospital, which we now, of course, call the Owen King European Union Hospital. That is up, it's running, it's functioning, we can say, but of course, at a mammoth cost. And that facility is uh, uh, certainly a modern facility. But once we speak about modernity, once we speak about uh, things that require consistent maintenance now come into the mix. And it invariably is going to cost more. And that is, of course, one of the challenges, no doubt, that we are seeing with respect to the matter of healthcare right here in St. Lucia. As to what is going to be the long term strategy in terms of financing healthcare, I think the jury is perhaps still out on that matter. But certainly efforts at play in terms of trying to ensure that the money that is being spent in healthcare is actually creating results, is actually reaching the people that they need, that it's actually going to be more performance based, is of course part of the shift that is occurring within the Ministry of Health in that regard. A major challenge, of course, is the issue of prevention. And we have, of course, a major issue with respect to that, because lots of the challenges that we are dealing with are certainly lifestyle challenges. As more and more individuals are moving away from manual labor, working out in the field, or working in a factory or workshop where you actually might very well be doing lots of physical work. That is changing. The nature of work around the world has certainly changed and will continue to result in significant change, whether it is by virtue of automation, whether it's in the how things are done, mechanization in the agricultural sector, or automation in the manufacturing sector, or further automation through artificial intelligence in so many other sectors. The whole concept of work is certainly being placed into a very interesting situation where we are seeing the knock-on effects, especially in terms of how active our bodies are. And so people have, in fact, certainly are becoming more and more and more sedentary with every new technological revolution that one sees. Perhaps tens of thousands of years ago, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers who were literally moving every single day, highly mobile, highly agile, continuing to follow the seasons and the movements of animal flocks and what have you, right? And then, of course, here came the agricultural revolution, and then people started settling down a little bit more, still engaging in manual labor, but certainly perhaps less than that period before. And then came the industrial revolution, and then people started working in factories, sitting down, and so each and every shift that you're seeing is almost causing for human beings to, in some way or form, have a lot more time doing less. And that, of course, can be risky. And it is certainly risky in terms of our health. And so, as we are now, right now, dealing with many of these issues, you can see the impacts of them in terms of the lack of exercise, the rise in obesity, including childhood obesity, lots of different challenges to face, even within our education system, and trying to get children to be more interested in sport and in outdoor physical activities as opposed to spending many hours in front of a screen or engaging in Roblox and Minecraft and all the other games that they so very much love at this point, is certainly a major challenge within the education system, but even beyond that, in terms of lifestyle. And so certainly the matter of healthcare and preventative healthcare and being able to actually create these healthy lifestyles for individuals is certainly one which has to be tackled. And so we will probably never going to be in a position where we can afford the kind of health infrastructure that is going to be able to support this rising burden of disease and issues of health. It therefore means that we certainly do have to continue to pay a premium in terms of areas that can lead to prevention in the long run. And so the matter of food and food quality, the matter of physical activity and sport are certainly areas that sometimes may be forgotten, but certainly do require their fair place within this entire scenario that we're dealing with in terms of the health crisis that we are unfortunately dealing with right here in St. Lucia and perhaps even all across the Caribbean. And so it's certainly a major issue and one to pay attention of as we move forward. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we will open up the line to take some calls and also look at some other information and things that are actually in the news as well.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Because if unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+, if all kind of tiles come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasware and vanity. Boss, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Jubilee Lanes, and Slack Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have tiles and princess pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, rice, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bella Rosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Castries, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library, Beaufort Highway. Call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's all, of course, on the 1.1. It's now time for a weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style, Tile and Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between the northeast and east near 14 miles per hour or 22 kilometers per hour. The weather partly cloudy to cloudy skies with a few showers. And there is an advisory here which reads that small craft operators and sea bathers are advised to exercise caution due to above normal seas. And the forecast for Lesser Antilles, partly cloudy to cloudy skies with scattered showers, mostly over the northern Leeward and Windward Islands. And the weather summary, light to moderate easterly winds are expected across the eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. A shell line which is drifting slowly southward will continue to cause some cloudy periods with showers over the Windward Islands, while a frontal boundary will continue to affect the northern portion of the region during the next 24 hours. And this was the weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talamba.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island Style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island Style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island Style.
We have tiles and king sets, mixes and ground. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality rice, service choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Crompton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And our WhatsApp number, 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Now, one can easily say we are certainly into the last few days, in fact, the last week of the Trump administration, of the Biden, Joe Biden administration. And of course, President-elect Donald Trump is to be sworn in next week on the 20th. And certainly it's interesting because we're seeing a few movements at this moment being taken by Biden, and some may very well ask if it is a bit too late in the game. But a very interesting one, which was made yesterday, was that the Biden administration announced plans to remove Cuba from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. And there's a story on this on the CNN website, which I want to share with the listeners of Lunchroom today. It reads as follows. The Biden administration announced Tuesday that it will remove Cuba from the state sponsor of terrorism list, a move taken in the twilight of the administration that is likely to be reversed by the incoming team. President Joe Biden will notify Congress on Tuesday of his intent to lift the designation, a senior administration official said, noting that an assessment has been completed and we do not have information that supports Cuba's designation. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo designated Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism in January 2021, just days before leaving office, saying at the time that Havana was providing support for acts of international terrorism in granting safe harbor to terrorists, after refusing to extradite leaders of a Colombian guerrilla organization who were in Havana for peace talks when a deadly bombing took place in the South American nation. Pompeo accused the nation of reneging on its commitments made when President Barack Obama took them off the list of state sponsors of terrorism in 2015. Cuba has been one of just 4 nations designated as state sponsors of terrorism, along with North Korea, Iran, and Syria. Throughout the Biden administration, Cuban officials have advocated for their country's removal as a state sponsor of terrorism, which triggers stringent economic sanctions, in addition to more than the 6 decades-old U.S. embargo. In December, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel, alongside former Cuban leader Raul Castro, led a march of thousands of Cubans in front of the U.S. Embassy in Havana, calling for the removal of Cuba from the so-called terror list. Tuesday's move to lift the designation was part of a multi-pronged announcement that also included a waiver of Title III of the Helms-Burton Act, also known as the Libertad Act. The Trump administration in 2019 allowed the full implementation of this part of the act, which allowed U.S. nationals to sue for damages over private property seized during the Cuban Revolution. The move on Tuesday once again prevents U.S. nationals from doing so. Senior administration officials also said Biden was rescinding another Trump-era memorandum that established the so-called restricted list, which is a list of entities that form the base of certain entities in Cuba that are subject to certain prohibited financial transactions. Quote, concurrently to these unilateral steps that are being taken by the United States, it is our understanding that the Catholic Church is significantly advancing an agreement with Cuba to undertake a set of actions that will allow for the humanitarian release of a significant number of political prisoners in Cuba and those who have been detained unjustly, a senior administration official said. Another senior administration official said they expect the moves, quote, will be broadly well received in the region and beyond. This official said Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, quote, asked President Biden directly to remove Cuba from the list, and end quote, and that the Colombian government sent the U.S. a diplomatic note describing Cuba's help, quote, to facilitate peace negotiations and requested Cuba be removed from the state sponsors of terrorism designation. Other allies, including the EU, Spain, Canada, Colombia, Chile, and many others, have asked for Cuba to be removed from the list. And so we view this as an opportune moment to do so, given the important dialogue that is taking place between Cuba and the Catholic Church with respect to political prisoners, they explained. Still, the moves are not likely to last. President-elect Donald Trump has filled his team with officials hawkish on Cuba, including Senator Marco Rubio, his pick for Secretary of State. Rubio, the son of Cuban immigrants, has long backed punitive measures against the island's government. Quote, there is, under the procedures that govern, particularly the state sponsor of terrorism designation, an opportunity for Congress to review this, the first official said. Quote, with respect to the incoming administration, certainly they will have an opportunity to review this position as well. However, they will be working off the same basis of information as the current administration has in terms of evaluating whether Cuba meets the criteria for designation as a state sponsor of terrorism, they said. Asked about coordination with the incoming administration, the official said the transition teams of the respective administrations of the Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration have been in regular communication on a range of issues. And in this issue is among the issues on which they've been in communication. While criticizing the U.S. economic sanctions that remain, the Cuban Foreign Ministry on Tuesday in a statement said of the change to Cuba's terror list designation, quote, this decision puts an end to specific coercive measures which, together with many others, seriously damage the Cuban economy and have a severe impact on the population, end quote. In a separate statement, the Foreign Ministry announced Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel had written to Pope Francis in January that 553 prisoners would be released from Cuban jails. The Vatican had previously advocated for the release of political prisoners in Cuba, including those who took place in the island-wide July 11, 2021 protests. It was not clear, though, from the statement which prisoners would be set free or when. The statement said the prisoners would be released gradually. And that story, as I mentioned, is coming from CNN online. And of course, that matter is one which many Caribbean countries have been advocating for quite some time. That there is certainly lots of unfairness with respect to the ongoing decades-long embargo against Cuba, and of course, Cuba being a very, very good friend of many Caribbean countries. And certainly we saw the benefit of that friendship, particularly during and continuing into this period post-COVID. Of course, there are many, many Cuban health professionals upon which one can easily say our healthcare system depends on. And that, of course, has been as a result of the investments that had been made over the years by Cuba into educating its population and ensuring that, in fact, there were the opportunity for many of their citizens to be able to become doctors and nurses and scientists and the like. Of course, that had been extended to many persons from St. Lucia and the Caribbean through scholarships over the years. And so, in effect, a significant proportion of our doctors, in fact, are Cuban trained. And one can see the benefits directly as a result of that from the Cuban people in the Cuban state. It, of course, remains a very, very sore issue that after so many decades, there is, in fact, still this ongoing embargo upon a country that is, yes, the largest in the Caribbean, 10 million people, 10, 11 million people, but certainly dwarfs in comparison to its neighbor to the north, that of the United States of America. And so the treatment that it has continued to be meted out has certainly been a major sore point in terms of U.S., Latin America, and Caribbean relations over the years. Unfortunately, this matter seems to be coming rather late in the game with respect to the Biden administration. And would it not have been quite wonderful if it was back in 2021 that such a move would in fact have occurred? Of course, maybe the defense might be that they were doing investigations into the matter. I don't know, but it certainly is at a point now that one can only hope that perhaps good sense can prevail in such a situation, given the consideration, the impact that is continuing to have on Cuba and its economy right about now. But of course, that can only be perhaps classified as very, very wishful thinking, given the individuals who are in fact going to be heading the State Department and the general position of Trump and his Republican allies with respect to Cuba. So unfortunate situation there, and one can only wonder how things are going to continue to pan out with respect to Cuba in the coming days ahead. Of course, that has not stopped the United States from pushing harder on the matter of Venezuela. And of course, as we mentioned, sometime this week, the decision being taken to place an arrest warrant and a reward out for the arrest of President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. Now, of course, Cuba has been very much dependent on the tourism sector for its growth, just like us here in St. Lucia. And we've been seeing, there was once, in fact, a point of time that there was concern that the rise of Cuba may very well overshadow that of the rest of the Caribbean, and that the Caribbean may very well face a very hard time due to the potential of competition coming from Cuba, given its proximity to the United States, very easy access potentially if that market ever were to, in fact, open up. But they have been able to utilize the Canadian and European markets, and to some degree as well, the rest of Latin America, to be able to stay strong. In the case of St. Lucia, we just recently got a report, the most recent one, regarding tourism arrivals, and that was for the month of November. They usually are, as you can well appreciate, about a month and 2 months behind. So we're now getting the November data for visitor arrivals. And according to the St. Lucia Tourism Authority, 33,883 stopover arrivals in the month of November, which was a 3% increase over that of last November, as well as over November 2019. 2019 being used as that pre-COVID highest record year. That is the usual frame that is being utilized for comparison purposes. And that growth in the month of November was largely driven by the United States, 8% increase there, as well as the UK market with a 6% increase. And that was being generally pointed out to be connected with some of the events that were in fact held over that month of November. November, interesting time because it's usually just the point where we kind of are starting off into the winter season. Not quite, but just starting off. And so there were a number of interesting events that kind of buoyed and unusual because they would not normally have been at that time. Things like the Yamaha Sun Festival, as well as the England tour of the West Indies. That's in cricket. And there was also a point being made by the St. Lucia Tourism Authority that there was in fact a 26% increase in the number of seats in that month, with a 64% increase in the number of seats out of the United States, a significant amount, and as well the Caribbean had also seen a significant increase in the number of airline seats coming out of that in that month, 34% increase there. St. Lucia in the month of November also recorded 42 cruise calls, and that resulted in about 84,000 arrivals. And in terms of yacht vessels, 742 yachts visited the island, brought in about 5,000 visitors there as well. And so year to date, in terms of, this is January to November of 2024, stopover arrivals were up 15% year on year, 17% up for cruise arrivals, and 8% increase year on year for yacht arrivals. And so that was the general breakdown of the impact that we've been seeing in terms of the tourism arrivals here in St. Lucia. Just to give you some real figures, in 2019, up to November of that year, 2019, there were about 380,000 odd persons who came in or stayed over visitors to St. Lucia. And in 2024, that figure has moved up to 393,000. So you could see that difference, a gross of 13,000 more persons coming in. In the case of cruise, we've exceeded the 2023 numbers, but not quite so in terms of 2019, and that's for cruise. And so we still have a ways to go in terms of Cruise numbers in 2024 was about 588,000 for the year up to November, whereas in 2019 that figure stood at 660,000. So cruise has not quite yet gotten back to its pre-COVID levels. And the same can be said for yacht arrivals as well, although we are ahead of 2023 levels. In the case of both cruise and yachting arrivals, those numbers are still lagging behind the 2019 figures. And certainly the majority of the growth in stayover arrivals over that since 2019, the vast majority of that has in fact been from the US market. And that is where we are seeing the most significant gains in terms of overall stayover arrivals coming into the country. That United States market becoming ever more important. Now, of course, in terms of cruise, there was a bit of a event of note yesterday in terms of soufre. And you would recall that one of the aims of the efforts of Global Port Holdings is to make soufre more of a direct port of call for many of the vessels that are coming into St. Lucia, particularly more so the smaller luxury vessels that are bringing in persons who prefer those types of cruises, persons who are not interested in going on the vessels with 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 passengers. There is that market that exists, certainly. And soufre has been seen as a potentially pretty attractive option for those smaller vessels. And of course, also marrying the fact that it has limited capacity to necessarily handle those larger vessels. In any case, there is currently no cruise berths in soufre per se, but the opportunity for the use of tenders is seen as a potential lucrative market to handle some of these numbers, and that has been happening. And in fact, that was captured yesterday, where I believe up to 4 vessels were in fact within the Soufre Bay yesterday. And there is a story coming out of the HTS, which I believe we actually have available to share at this time. Let's just take a listen to this piece coming out of Helen Television Service.
Historic moment for this picturesque tourism town. 3 cruise ships simultaneously anchored off Soufre's waterfront, with a 4th departing earlier before news crews arrived. This marks a significant accomplishment for the destination despite recent hurricane damage. The unprecedented maritime traffic comes as repairs continue on the town's pier, which was battered by Hurricane Beryl in 2024.
I've been in this field for like 10 years now, and this is the first time I'm seeing 3 cruise ships in Soufre, and I'm just hoping that it continues like that. And for me, this is something that is being done right. I mean, the government is doing something right for that to be happening at this time.
Yes, first time in history I ever see 3 cruise ship. And for me, Antiema is working very good for us. Every day we have cruise ship.
So organizer Augustine Williams at the Soufre docks expressed optimism about the surge in arrivals.
Well, today is an exception to other days. We have seen 4 of them out there early this morning, and at present there is 3. And it's a good initiative for the people of Soufre. We can see some smiles on people's faces, and let us hope that it continue like this for the completion of the season. I have been in the tourism industry for the past 40 years, and I have a lot of experience as to the ins and the outs of different things in Soufre. And I'm happy to be part of it because I meet people all different walks of life, and it has been a bit of success for us in the Soufre basin.
The increased maritime activity has brought renewed energy to the local tourism sector. Cyril Saltibus, administrative manager of the Soufrière Regional Development Foundation, credits multiple stakeholders for the success. He particularly praised the foundation's board of directors for their swift action on infrastructure. The staff received special recognition for their role in the cruise tourism revivals.
I think we have to be excited in St. Lucia, not just in Soufrière. But you must give credit to the government of St. Lucia through the Ministry of Tourism for keeping that negotiations going with the cruise liners, the tour operators, and more so the board of directors headed by Mr. Ernest Auger of the foundation, who took a decision in a timely manner to repair the jetties, because without the jetties, we can't land any tourists on into Soufrière. And the district representative, who's really on the backs of SLASPA and the Ministry of Infrastructure to make sure that Soufrière is ready for this great season. So we have to applaud all of them. But most exciting for me is to applaud the staff. The staff of the Soufrière Foundation. They're the gold mine, in my opinion, of the tourism industry in St. Lucia. And the reason why sometimes we take home so many Jimmys every time the government put on those awards. The Soufrière Foundation staff is really the backbone to the experience the tourists have when they land on our jetties, to the taxi drivers who take them to the sites, and the tour operators who bring them up to the pitons and give them the experience of the tour of the sulfur springs and the experience of the mud bath.
Looking ahead, the foundation aims to enhance both tourist and local experiences.
The tourism industry have instituted the tourism ambassadors who meet the tourists and give them information. This is just great news for the country. It is great for the foundation, for the people of Soufrière. And when you look at our vision, our mission, we're doing exactly what we're supposed to do, just enhance the tourism, the visitor arrival experience, and that of the locals also. It is always a pleasure when you come out of your office and you look into the harbor and you see, one big cruise ship or two small ones and a big one, or even the little tenders bringing people back and forth. It's a nice sight. There's good business for the Soufrière in its totality, not just the foundation. It is really Soufrière that benefits from the tourist arrival. And I'm just urging the young people in Soufrière to develop more gifts locally made, so the tourists can go back home and say, hey, I got this in Soufrière. And those are the things the foundation is doing, working with children, working with schools to enhance the visitor arrival in Soufrière.
The Soufrière port is slated for major transformation under the mega GPH redevelopment project. Gina Filippi, it's DS News Force.
Right, and thanks to HTS for that story, of course. And certainly, it's important for a town like Soufrière, where you've heard quite often the challenges that it's just been a thoroughfare, right? People are just sort of passing through the town and heading, up to these various attractions, which are not necessarily within the town itself. And the hope, of course, that if in fact vessels are actually coming in and berthing and they're staying, there is going to be that greater direct spill-off in terms of the actual town itself, the historic town of Soufrière. Of course, that is one step in it, and no doubt there'll be a need to see how the amenities and opportunities within the town of Soufrière itself can continue to encourage individuals to invest in the properties within the city, within the town of Soufrière. And of course, the importance of not losing the cultural heritage, the architectural heritage that exists in the town of Soufrière is also pretty vital. It is one of the things that people look towards when they, in fact, are visiting anywhere around the world. They want to be able to get some sort of the historic context of the space that exists that they are visiting. And quite often people are enamored by that aspect of it, the architecture of the space. And so certainly Soufrière is one of the areas that still has a bit of hope when it comes to the architecture that has been brought forward into this current era. But of course, we know part of the history of Soufrière has been devastation by fire. It got burnt, the northern part of the town got burnt in 1955. And so, of course, you see a sort of a dichotomy between the south side of the town, where you have the older, more wooden structures with their, overhanging balconies and the fretwork and the mansard roofs and the dormer windows, and a certain style, and is very much of the traditional vernacular of the Caribbean. And of course, north of that, it sort of is not the same. It gets lost in a lot of concrete structures, which don't keep towards that style. But of course, there are things that can be done, whether it's through facade treatments and improvements along the way, and beautification of areas. A lot of stuff can certainly help in terms of ensuring that Soufrière becomes this real gem in terms of visitors coming into the island. So great opportunities there, and let's hope that we can see it spread into around the economy of Soufrière in very, very meaningful ways. Now, also, we just wanted to make a mention. There's a meeting upcoming that is happening this coming weekend, and it is an annual general meeting of the Foundation for the Improvement of Rastafarian Elders, FIRE, and they're inviting all members of the Improvement of Rastafarian Elders Foundation to a general meeting on Sunday, the 19th of January, 2025, at Chateau Heritage. And Chateau Heritage is on the is in Dennery, along the East Coast Road, the Castries VA4 Highway, just opposite the schools, the Dennery schools area there. So that is happening. The Foundation for Improvement of Rastafarian Elders, FIRE. They're inviting all members to a general meeting, and that is carded for this coming Sunday, January the 19th at 1 p.m., 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It is the second biennial meeting of FIRE, and it is in fact happening in Dennery, but it's for the entire island, of course. And there is going to be transportation for persons in the Castries area that will be from the Derek Walcott Square opposite Taxi. And it says that the transportation will be available from 1 o'clock. I'm not sure if that's an error, given that the meeting is supposed to start at 1 o'clock. But that is the information that we have been provided. So for those who are so interested, they can in fact participate in that upcoming meeting. There was also, in that very same location last night, a town hall meeting of the St. Lucia Labour Party for that constituency of Dennery South. And perhaps later on in this week, maybe tomorrow, we can take in a few highlights of some of the pronouncements that were made at that meeting, which saw speeches being delivered by the island's Minister for Education, Sean Edward, as well Dr. Ernest Hilaire, the Tourism and Investment Minister, the Agriculture Minister, who happens to also be the MP for Dennery South, Mr. Alfred Prosper, as well as the Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip J. Pierre. They were all speakers at that event yesterday evening at that very same location, Chateau Heritage. That's our program for today, and we do hope that you can join us again tomorrow, God willing, for another one. I'm your host, Alex George Jr., saying goodbye.